Welcome to Authors Allies, the podcast where we dive into the world of authors, books, and the art of storytelling. Join us for in-depth interviews with celebrated authors, insightful book reviews, and practical tips on marketing your literary masterpiece. After 20 years publishing magazines, I, your host, Rebecca Paciorek, am so thrilled to be able to work within my dream of promoting authors and their books. Whether you're a seasoned writer or just starting your journey, we've got something for you. So grab your favorite beverage, settle in, and let's explore the fascinating world of books together. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Authors Allies podcast. Today, we have a really special and fascinating guest. Halina Schafer is with us, and she has a neat story which just proves that it is never too late to pursue your passions, no matter what they are. Halina has had not one, but two fulfilling careers before becoming an author. She started out in medical pathology. I have to read that because I'll get those words wrong on us there. And then she transitioned to the field of mental health. And she spent over 2 decades as a licensed clinical social worker, a therapist, and a supervisor in those roles. And now she's combined her love of science and her understanding of human emotions into a thriving third career as an author of children's books. So she's even tackling complex topics like climate change as well in her upcoming STEM book. Join us now as we dive in to Halina's inspiring story. Welcome, Halina. I'm so thrilled to have you today on the podcast.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
Yay, you have had such an interesting job. How in the world does a person go from pathology, medical pathology, to social worker to author? Those are three very different careers. You want tell us how that happened?
I would have to start back in my childhood to connect the dots, so to speak, maybe blue dots, but I was quite sick as a child. And that led to about 2 years of constant interaction with doctors, being in the hospital, a lot of medical issues. It took almost 2 years for doctors to diagnose me with lupus. And lupus is an autoimmune disease for people who may not know. As I moved past the critical nature of the disease early on, and I was going into the 8th grade, and obviously then into high school. And when I got to high school, it was fun because I knew that there were tracks, so to speak, in high school where I could start to explore careers. And honestly, I wanted to be a doctor, but that didn't pan out financially within the family. And so I said, okay, what could I do? And pathology came to mind early on. And by the time I was in high school, I was already working in a pathology lab. So that brought me into medical pathology for over 20 years. My degree was in the sciences. And back in the late 80s, early 90s, the AIDS epidemic was going into full bloom, sadly. Sure. And I was very intrigued by what allowed one person not to be cured, but to live, and another to succumb and pass. And that mental health piece to me is what motivated me more toward career change, particularly when I was told in medical pathology that I had to go for an advanced degree. The career was changing. I was supervising in a laboratory and they wanted a higher degree and so on. When I thought about that, I said, do I want to do that in the hard sciences again? Or do I want something else? And the answer became obvious. I wanted to do something else. And Then I toyed with the idea if I go back and get a degree in psychology first, because I would need that. Then from there, what next? Do I go on
Right.
for a PhD in psychology, or what are my options? I happen to have gone to Stony Brook University in New York for my master's in clinical social work. And I was one of the last groups that could literally take their licensing exam in their finishing year
Mm-hmm.
and walk out being licensed. My first job in that field just so happened to be mental health and substance abuse. But that's how I got to where I got to in those two careers. When I was ready to retire, thinking about retiring,
And how long ago was that? Sorry, how long has it been since you
my
actually retired? Just
my
to clarify.
last day of work was December 31st, 2013.
Okay, so it's been a while. Okay,
It's been a while.
so we have perspective there.
Yeah. John and I had already bought this house in South Carolina.
Okay.
At that time, one of my nieces was having the first of the next generation of children in the family. And that's what inspired me. Originally, it was a scrapbook,
Yeah.
which later became Fiona and the Extra Special Invisible Gifts, my first book.
Yay.
I really didn't intend on any level as I was putting it together. It was strictly family pictures and captions, a
Okay.
word, a phrase, or whatever that I remembered from an event. When I presented that as a first birthday present to my niece and obviously her daughter, who had turned one, she and her husband said, "You've got to do something more with this. You really do."
Aw.
And that's what, again, my curiosity, what would that take? How would I do that?
Yeah.
And the adventure began. It took me, by the time it was actually published, it took me over 3 years. Needless
Wow.
to say, yeah, there were so many decisions to make, ultimately deciding to self publish. And at that time, the self publishing process, or from a get the book into print perspective, really, my learning curve is still going up in that area because
They change it every day anyway.
that's what I was going to say. I can't keep up with the technology.
Oh,
You know
yeah.
that expression, old dogs, new tricks? That's me. I'm the old dog because I'm trying to learn these new tricks and they just don't make sense to me. But here I am, 3 books out,
That's awesome.
all self-published, and a 4th book that I'm working toward getting published.
That's great. You had said that you took the book, the scrapbook you had made, and turned it into a book. So are the illustrations in Fiona's book here basically all coming from the original photos that were in your scrapbook, and then you
They
had
are.
an artist draw those for you?
They are. Yeah.
Wow. So the text wouldn't have taken you any time. I'm guessing getting the illustrations, was that kind of the big part on that?
It certainly was. It's one thing to say, okay, I'm going to get somebody to do this, but then you want someone that you can work with who
Yeah.
has an idea of what you want. I met her because she was doing art classes at a local store that had an art department and framing,
Okay.
and I stopped to talk to her one day and I said, "Do you have any idea about illustrators?" And she said, "Tell me what you're doing." I explained to her I had pictures that I wanted
Yeah.
put into some format that I could use within a book. And she said, "I'd be interested. It's one of those right place, right time
Sure.
for both of us." And that's how that started. As I progressed with the book itself, the editor I was using at that time, when he went through the manuscript of the book, he posed something to me that I never thought of. There was an element that I wanted to put in the book
Hmm.
about all children are the same. All children, if they're given the same opportunities, will blossom, and so on. I had the birthday party aspect at the end of the book.
Okay.
And he said to me, why don't you put the birthday party aspect at the beginning of the book? And it was so spot on that it gave me the perfect spot at the end of the book to put some graphics
Love it.
of children, different races, different colors, and so on, which I did through Canva.
Okay.
And I want parents, remember, this book is really written for the reader just as
Right.
much as the child. So I wanted parents to recognize that there are ways that we can look at child development without having any background in it, those
Sure.
stages of development and so on, because that was a big part of my learning process going into social work.
Okay. That makes sense. So looking at that book, and then I bounced to when I was looking at your books, then I bounced to this one, the Who Found Who.
Yeah.
So looking through them, they're the same illustrator, I take it, because the art looks similar to
Yes.
me.
But this was all her talent. It was no pictures other than meeting the bird.
Okay. So yeah, so this one is about your bird. That's your actual parrot.
Yeah.
He's your parrot. So that's pretty cool. So tell us his name on the front here.
His name is Georgie.
Georgie is very cute. And you still have Georgie, right?
I do. It's going on 8 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that was an adventure.
I'm sure.
I was working outside in the yard and said, oh my goodness, it looks like it's going to rain. Started picking up all my things, the little trowels and what have you. And walking around the side of the house, I heard this horrible squawk that
Okay.
was very loud. And I didn't know where it came from. So I froze for
Oh my gosh, yeah.
couple of seconds until I actually heard him again. And then I could track the sound. He was sitting on the roof of my car in the driveway.
Oh my gosh, he wanted a ride.
Here was Georgie walking back and forth on the rail of my car.
Oh my gosh.
And when I came around, I was very hesitant to get too close to him. So I approached, kept talking to him in a normal tone. It took me probably a good 15 minutes to make a decision that I'm pretty sure this bird was raised.
Oh, okay.
As opposed to out in the wild. This book became my imagining what he was through while he was out in the wild.
I love it. It's so cute.
And the point up to which I start retrospectively in the story saying what he must have been through, all of that was true. The minute he heard John's voice or saw John, I don't remember which, he flew to the next door neighbor's roof.
Oh, okay.
The minute John walked away, he came right back to the car. So that was all before I had put my hand up to him.
Oh, okay.
And he's just been my little friend. I call him my little buddy. He's a Quaker parrot. That's one of the smallest breeds. So he's only about, let's say, 8 to 10 inches tall. We tried teaching him some words, but I'm not sure if he has a problem with hearing or something with his speech. The one phrase he did latch on to is John would always say, "What's up, Georgie?" And so if I walk out of the room and then come back in, he says, "What's up?"
That's awesome. I love that.
When I decided I was going to turn this into a story, this would be a new adventure for me because I said, how do I take something that happened with me, but incorporate what I think happened?
Right.
to him. So I made it into an easy reader chapter book. So that's approximately ages 5 through about 8.
Okay.
And once I narrowed my perspective down to that age group, then it was easy. When I'm writing for children, to me, it is very important to be able to put down verbiage that they can actually grasp. I don't want it
Oh,
above their
okay.
head.
Yep.
I
Yep.
don't want it too simple, then they'll get bored. I discovered something called the Flesh Kincaid readability scale. And
Okay.
what you do with this program is you just plug in paragraphs, cut and paste, plug in a paragraph, and it does its magic, and it will tell you approximately what age, what grade the reading
Nice.
level is.
Very
It
helpful.
goes by how many words in a sentence, how many syllables in a word, how many words in a sentence, how many
Okay.
sentences in a paragraph. And that's how it analyzes what you've put on paper. And does it jive with what you want for an age expectation? So that was another piece of my learning curve.
Yeah,
Um,
that's really neat though. Very helpful.
One of the places that I would go to market my books is there's a child development center right off the edge of this community. And the director of that program, he said, "Oh my goodness, I got to get you in here." I would do some reading with the kids, but then
Oh,
at the end of their day, I would stick around and sell the books to the parents.
nice. Good
And
idea.
And one of the pieces that I decided was important, that if you have a child who is just learning to read, and again, developmental process, just learning to read, how can you reinforce that process as, oh, look how good you're doing? And so one of the things that I did, I use bigger font
Yeah. And
for the
some
word
color.
big, and
Okay.
the color red for the word red. It gives them a sense of accomplishment, which
I
I'm
love
very
that.
happy about. But
Yeah.
but this book really was interesting in some other ways because I'm connected to an organization here called Turning Pages.
Okay.
And that is a literacy program for adults.
Yes. Oh, I'm excited to hear about this because I know you said something in your bio about literacy issues and dementia with this
Right,
particular book.
right.
Yeah.
And when I started going to some of their meetings and events and what have you, just prior to the holidays, they always do a book sale.
Okay.
So they invite all local authors in.
Oh, nice.
I obviously realized very quickly that because of the age level for this book, this might be a good addition to their library
Sure.
working with people. And they were very excited about that, as was I. But the dementia aspect was another interesting one. I like to do local events, and my church invited me to do a book sale one day. And a woman came up to me, and she had been flipping through the book. And
Mhm.
she came up to me and she said to me, "I know this is going to sound funny, but I'm going to buy this book for my mom." Now, the woman I was talking to was probably 60,
Okay.
and I had seen her mother once or twice with her, and I knew she had some difficulties. And I said, "Just help me to understand why this book and your mom." And she said, "My mom is progressing, unfortunately, moving through stages of dementia. She can be in the moment, she can be present, but anyone with dementia will tell you, family will tell you, memory goes retrograde. So you lose what you did yesterday,
Mhm.
and maybe you land back at age 20. I'm picking a number." She said, "My mother still knows how to read." And she said, adult books are just too difficult for her.
Ah.
Too long, What happens in one chapter doesn't necessarily get carried over in the other, but much too difficult for her brain to process. She bought this book for her mom, and within a week or two, she came back and she said to me, "I love this book for my mom." She said, "My
Really?
mom reads it almost every day." She's
Oh, I
she
love that.
I know. And she said, "I can hear her laughing because there's some funny stuff in there that the bird goes through." She says, "I hear my mom go, uh-oh, because there's some adventure stuff in there that you don't know what's
Yeah.
going to happen next." So the book made an impression with this lady. So you never
Wow.
know. You never know where your readers are going to come from. Seriously.
That is
Um,
amazing. I mean, did she ever have a bird, or this
no,
lady just
no.
thought it would be an interesting thing to try? And,
She said
you know,
her mom always loved animals,
I love it.
and it struck a chord with her.
That
So,
is so neat. And I wouldn't have thought of that. Is that something that you've explored any further since you're so inquisitive, or is it
well,
just something you've kind of tucked away for now?
not when you say explored, for me, what I do is when I'm promoting the book someplace, I talk
Yeah.
about that aspect.
Yeah. Because that's such a
Mm.
great story to share.
Thank you.
Yeah. When you were writing these two books, they're very different, I notice,
Right,
from You Can't Make Me.
right.
And I know that you're working on a STEM book now as well. And so I laughed, Halina, when I was looking at the books last night, because I thought, okay, your third career press, and it was like three different careers. And I looked at these three books. I'm like, oh, look, it's like third career third career book. So this book is very different, I feel like, from these first two as well.
Yes,
And knowing more about your background with the therapy, the counseling, all of that, the social work stuff, it makes more sense to me. How did you come upon doing You Can't Make Me then? Because this is really just for the people that are listening. If a person were to look through this book, I would say this is like half workbook, half book, half
yes,
journal, half workbook, let's say.
yes, yes.
It's not just a story. How
No,
did you come up with this idea after having written these creative stories? It's so different.
it's not actually, again, because of my background, I'm very much aware of developmental age and so
Okay.
on. And I started to write this book right around the time where COVID was going to
Ah.
get us all in together, which
Mhm.
meant all children were under the same roof with siblings, with parents, maybe another generation, grandparents in the same household. And I thought, oh my God, these kids are going to go off the rails.
Mhm.
Children, especially at that tweens age, 9 through 14, maybe even a little older, that is part of their developmental process. They need to interact face to face with their friends.
Mhm.
They're exploring everything.
Okay.
They need to bounce it off their friends. What would you do if that kind
Mhm.
of thing? Part of what I did in my last position as a clinical social worker was I supervised clinicians who ran an adolescent program, and
Okay.
I wrote the programming aspect of it. So it wasn't difficult for me to think about what is this going to be like emotionally
Mm.
for everybody under the same roof. So what I did was one by one, I just picked an emotion and started to write about it. I wanted kids to understand that every one of us is different, that emotions actually happen on a scale.
Okay.
You can be not happy, you can be mad or you can be in a rage, so that they start to understand it really is a sliding scale.
Sure.
And if you're at the far end of this scale, how do you tone it back? What can you do? And that's where the piece, only you can change how you feel.
I love it.
As a therapist, I always worked cognitive behavioral therapy.
Okay.
So once you bring in awareness of what the issue is, then you work with, we always said the ABCs, antecedent, what precipitated, what behavior did you display, and then what was the consequence or outcome of how you handled it. And that's why I knew I needed to incorporate journaling.
Yes.
Because I give them scenarios. And that's when you said there's no story here.
There are. The examples are fabulous. And
yeah, I give them those little scenarios to see if they can relate to any of them as to what brought on what they were feeling. And then I coach them in the process of journaling so that they can go back next time that emotion comes up. They're going to be better equipped to identify it, better equipped to see what didn't work last time. And I say to them, that's not going to stop you from going through something again. Right. But now maybe you will be able to see what didn't work last time. Did it work any better this time? And what else can you do to change it for even the better? So
I love this so much because I grew up in the 70s and I'm Gen X, and all of the memes and the videos are so true. Do you feel like the generation that we're raising is going to at least stand a better shot than us poor Gen X kids walking around not knowing what to do with our emotions?
I'll tell you something. It's been a journey for me with this, but even now, when somebody buys that book, or sometimes even just standing at a table and looking at the book, I've had lots of feedback, parents, grandparents, school social workers saying, oh boy, we need this, I need this. Very recently, I sold a book to someone who was working with children who are at risk.
Okay.
And she said, I really need to have this. She said, for myself, to help them.
Okay.
And so it's got broad implications for who may want it and use it. I've had feedback from parents and grandparents who say, where was this book when I was raising?
That's exactly what I'm thinking.
It's there. I write for children, but the implications are take it where it needs to be. That editor that I mentioned before, who surprised me with the first book and made everything fall into place, he surprised me again when he edited that book. And he said to me, I knew he had two young boys. He said, boy, are you going to make me think before I open my mouth again.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing though.
Yeah. But every time I do another project, I surprise myself. I don't know how else to say it. Working toward this next book, the STEM book, that just happened because I'm always very interested in ecology. And it's clear that climate change is wreaking havoc with not just coasts, but with animal populations, with vegetation. You can see the link between the two because one of the characters in this book coming up is a manatee. And I just think manatees are the coolest animals.
They really are. They're neat.
They look, God took all the leftover spare parts and put them together in one animal.
I love it.
It's got a face like a hippopotamus. It's got a tail like a beaver. It makes noises like an elephant. It's just a fun animal. But they feed off of seagrass.
Okay.
And along the coast, seagrass is being killed off rapidly.
Oh, wow.
Between things like red tide, which is happening from the water heating up so much. I work very closely with the Marine Institute in Charleston And the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources is one of my best research places. I'm a researcher at heart. Give me a topic
Very obvious. I love it. I love it.
I'll find out as much as I can. And I actually had the book edited for content by 3 top people at the Marine Institute in Charleston.
Oh, wow.
They each took their specialty. The director of that institute had to, I'll say, farm out the piece on bats because I knew bats were experiencing some major issues because of climate. And she said, we do marine things. We don't do mammals.
So we need a little help on that one, huh?
Yeah. So she found me someone to take a look at that. But that's a passion of mine. I was looking for an illustrator who would do animals within the context of a story.
Sure.
And I'm telling you, I find more people through my church network. This woman was an artist, and she had one picture there that absolutely blew me away. And I approached her. I said, have you by any chance ever thought of illustrating a book? And she said, maybe.
Let's chat.
But the animal picture, I can't think of the name. It's an African elk. I can't think of the name of it, but it's got the horns, the big horns that.
Oh, yeah.
She did that, but she did it in a very whimsical way. And
neat.
So she and I started talking, and I explained to her that if we can coordinate and do this together, it's going to be different because you work off your imagination, but I need you to work off my story through your imagination.
Yeah.
So we went through a process of, she would do a certain picture. I would describe the picture for her, mental image, and she would come up with a rough sketch, and I'd say, oh, perfect, but.
No, that makes sense.
And then finally, probably half, maybe even 2/3 of the way through, she really clicked with everything I was trying to do.
I love it.
I'm hoping that maybe, just maybe, I can get it out this year. But the past year has been riddled with some health issues that really prevented me from doing everything I needed to. Because of shoulder surgery, there was a point where I couldn't even put my hands on the keyboard, so I couldn't do anything. But I'm definitely on the mend. And so now you have it. That's me in a bigger than a nutshell.
That is so exciting. And I love that what you were saying about how the books really can appeal to all different people. Because when I look through them, basically, I originally was seeing the 3 different age groups, right? You've got the young one, the middle one, the kind of the preteen, and then to me, the STEM one goes through all of it. But thinking about the climate change and all of the things that go on, and thinking about how busy we get as humans, especially when we're parents. And so for everyone, for the parent reading the book, for the grandparent reading the book, the same thing with the journal that you did. These are opportunities for all of us to just keep growing. Like we can just keep growing always, just like you changed careers a couple times. You've got these different books going. I love that. And it's really neat to me too, how your books they're still different, but you've got 2 different illustrators now that you've worked with. The illustrations in You Can't Make Me, I believe I had read, or you maybe told me before, that you did those, right? The pencil drawings. So what kind of advice would you give to aspiring authors? Looking back on what you've learned, and I know you said you've had to learn the hard way, right? You jumped in, and you're a researcher, so thank goodness for that, because you knew how to find it. What do you think that aspiring authors could do today to make it easier on themselves versus the path that you've gone, you think?
Given my age, I'm in my 70s, my biggest hurdle was technology.
Okay.
The writing came easily. I think any writer, any aspiring writer, has a lot of imagery of a story. It doesn't have to be necessarily in pictures, but they may know what they want to get across to people, my first piece of advice is write.
Yeah. Just do it, right?
Sit down and do it. I will tell you that I don't have any rituals or routines about my writing. When something hits me, it hits me. It's that
I love it.
cosmic 2x4 that gets me upside the
Yep.
head.
You just have to sit down and you
I'm
do
good.
it before you lose it, before it
Exactly.
goes away.
Even if you just outline a
Sure.
couple of things. I have written some short stories,
Okay.
and again, sparked by something in my life. It doesn't necessarily have to be me personally, but
Sure.
usually the way it comes, because if it caught my attention, it's personal to me.
Hmm.
Hand it off to somebody else when you think you're done with it,
Ah, okay.
and ask them what they think of it. Now,
Okay.
I'm not talking about grammar. I'm not talking about developmental process if you're writing for children. Story.
Okay.
A story has always been communicated mouth to ear. And just like going back to my book on Fiona, parents need to help develop the interests
Hmm.
of a child. So
Absolutely.
I'm in that same position again with this fourth book. And I just got a copy of a book, a STEM book that won an award,
Oh, okay.
because I wanted to see. It's actually the woman who wrote this book is a photographer, and she was always a marine photographer. She's got all the background, everything kids who are interested might want to know.
Sure.
Now, when I think of STEM programs, which is science, technology, engineering, medical, they're also adding more letters to that with math and art.
Yes.
How long do we think those kinds of programs, and I'm not hoping at all that they are not going to be funded, but we have to think about that. So if you're going to have a dissolution of a very structured way for children to learn and explore what excites them, how else are we going to do it?
Mm.
I'm hoping that books stick around for a while, but I'm also interested in the benefit of doing things, for example, as a Kindle book.
Yeah.
So that's something I need to learn more about as I come into this fourth book. I will tell you, I have that book right here that this woman wrote. Her name is Michelle Cusolito, and
Okay.
it's called A Window into the Ocean Twilight Zone.
Oh, wow. We'll put that in the show notes for people too if they want to check it out.
24 days of science at sea.
Oh, wow. That sounds neat.
Just as an example, she will give you pictures of what's going on the ship
Okay.
that she's on,
Gotcha.
because she joined this research team to be
Sure.
able to do stuff. But she puts
Wow.
in a lot of the everyday sit down and
Sure.
eat
Yeah. Yeah.
and what it's like on a research ship.
Okay.
So I'm always interested in how are we handling ecology?
Yeah.
But from the author side, how do I take what I learn and put it back out again for a kid to say, hey, that's cool. Let me find out more
Hmm.
about that. And that's what I'm hoping to do with this fourth book, to excite. If I catch one kid's attention, that to me is I've done my
Aw.
job. That's how
I
I feel.
love that. And I think you're going to catch some parents' attention too,
Yeah,
which then they will hand that down to their kids. Growing up, we didn't think to recycle anything. We
right.
did have because I grew up in the country, we did save all the food and we just tossed it onto a pile and we composted our food basically.
Oh,
But we didn't think of a lot of things, right? And as a parent, I'm like, oh, we always heard save the trees. So we're saving the trees. We recycle every week. We have the extra trash cans. We do all the
Yeah.
things and try to learn. We're all learning as we grow, as we go, and all of that. You mentioned that you like the hard books versus the Kindle, which I will admit that because I'm such a reading nerd myself, I had a very tough time switching over because I love the smell of a book, the feel of a
Yes.
book, all of it, right?
Yes.
What convinced me though was I bought nightlight after nightlight, those little book lights, and they would all just die so quickly. So for me to be able to lay in bed or wherever and read instead of being the kid with the flashlight like I always
Yes.
was has been perfect. But also because I read all the time, like I don't do television, I've there's years I've read 200 books in a year. I don't have room for that. So I've had to switch over logistically.
Yeah.
But what's neat about, to me, what's really cool with the children's books and the STEM books and things like that is the availability of technology to enhance that learning. I've seen printed books where you're looking at a kid's book and you can take a photo of a QR code and then
Right.
watch a video that goes with it. I've read Kindle books where you can click on the link and then go out to the video or different things like that. And so, like you said, you're always wanting to learn more and you're that researcher. That's what's really great about the technology that's coming out.
Yes.
One of the great things about it is that hopefully, like you said, hopefully we can snag some of those people that are wanting to learn more. And I can't think that books are ever really going to go away. I feel like they're just going to keep changing like they
Mhm.
have. Even now, I was thinking about this the other day. You probably remember this too. As a kid, I used to have the read along books. Remember, we'd have our little
Yes.
record player and then it would
Yeah.
ding to turn the page. Kindle basically has that now too. It will read it out loud while a kid is reading the book. And so it's just changing. And you were picking on yourself earlier saying you can't teach an old dog new tricks. But having seen what you've been doing, I'm pretty sure that you are not an old dog that cannot learn new tricks, Halina. The tech may be difficult, but it's changing for everyone. It's
Yeah.
not just changing for you. And so that's the thing. Yes, it may take you a little longer to grasp some of those tech pieces
Mhm.
because they don't always make it easy to learn, but you've done a nice job of really learning to do that yourself. And to self-publish the 3 books the way you have so far, that's just amazing to me. Where can people find you? And keep in mind, I will put all these links in the notes for everyone too, but
Okay. The first two books are on Amazon.
okay, Fiona and Who Found Who, the 2 color books,
Right.
okay?
The third book, You Can't Make Me. Oh, this book I wanted with the spiral bind.
Okay. So for that
Okay, I'm
I
sorry.
because we have that one is not able to go through Amazon
Yeah.
either.
Right.
Amazon does not do the binding. So I
Right.
know if someone goes to your website and they
Yes.
click on the books, the first 2 will basically take them to Amazon, and then that
Correct.
one will take them to Lulu.
Lulu.
And then if they want signed copies, they're basically emailing you, right? And then you'll take
Yeah.
care of that from
Yeah.
there if someone wants a signed copy. Okay.
Absolutely. I still do some of my local events,
Okay.
which I love because then it gives me
Yes.
an opportunity to speak with parents, grandparents, whoever comes
Okay.
looking for a children's book, at which point I sign them right there. It's a lot of fun.
Nice. Now, for people who may be listening that might be somewhat local to you, pretty much how would they find out about your events? Would they want to just get on your email list, go to your Facebook page, that type of thing? Are you announcing?
Yes, all of the above.
Okay, good, good.
My Halina Schafer author page, I put posts on.
Okay,
I gave them that on that. I post events on my website, which is
okay,
thirdcareerpress.com. To email me, they can just use my name at Gmail.
okay.
And
And I think I saw that you have a free coloring book on your website. Is that
yes,
right?
yes,
Okay,
anyone who signs up on the website to get onto my emailing list will
okay.
automatically, when they sign up, will automatically get a copy.
Cute. Okay,
And again, this is for different age groups. There's little puzzles, there's little crossword puzzles, there's coloring, lots of
Okay.
coloring.
So that's on your website, and then they
Yeah,
just print that out themselves. And
correct,
okay,
correct.
we'll put that link in there too. I'll get all that into the show notes.
Thank you, thank you. Somebody said to me, "Can I have an extra copy?" My kids took mine.
That's funny. Oh my goodness. Maybe
Uh,
that's its own project someday.
yeah, yeah.
I love it. I love it. I have to ask because the podcast started out as Books and Brew, as live on my Facebook page. When you're writing, what would be in your cup? You have to tell us that.
My cup is a cup of tea.
Cute. Okay. Tea is
Uh,
good.
Tea is good. I try not to drink caffeine. This is herbal tea. I try not to drink caffeine past like 10, 11
Oh
o'clock in
yeah.
the morning.
Same.
And on occasion, depending upon who's the rest of the group, maybe a glass of wine.
Perfect. Especially if you're reading,
Yeah.
then you get the wine.
Yeah.
That's
So
wonderful. That's wonderful. So tell me this. Is there anything that you think people need to know about you or your books before we say goodbye here? And is there something else that you think people need to know about you?
just that, as I said, I'm in my 70s and I'm
Amazing.
not ready to sit down and do nothing. I'm sure I will have more to come. I kidded around, and it's someplace on my website, maybe on my bio, that says 20 plus years in medical pathology, 20 plus years in clinical social work. So 20 plus years must be for writing. And if I do that, I'll be in my 90s.
Perfect. I see it
Um,
happening.
I'm pretty much a very happy, upbeat person. And I can only hope for good things for children, because the next generation is going to have more to contend with.
We
So,
always do, right?
yeah,
Every generation has something that they've
yeah,
got to deal with. So I guess it'll be interesting to see what happens.
yeah.
See what
And
happens next. I
I
really appreciate you being on the show. It's been so fun.
thank you. Don't hesitate to email me if you have a question, if you have something that you want to ask about which book might be better for a particular age or what have you.
I
So
love it. I love it. Thank you again.
it's been a wonderful experience this time, but since I'm working for you, it's been wonderful.
Aw, thanks so much, Halina. Halina is a member of the Authors Allies Roundtable Marketing Membership, which we started last year. So she's been schmoozing with the other authors, and I know you've given several pieces of good advice to the rest of them as well. It's wonderful to be able to all share and collaborate on things.
Absolutely.
Makes it a lot more fun too.
Yes.
Whole lot more fun. Wonderful.
Okay. Thank you so much. Much
Absolutely.
appreciated.
That's all for this episode of Authors Allies. We hope you enjoyed our exploration of the literary world. Be sure to stay tuned for our next episode, where we'll have more fascinating interviews, book reviews, and marketing tips. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform. Leave us a review and share us with a friend. To get your free copy of our ebook, 10 Steps to Your Ultimate Book Marketing Plan, be sure to head over to our show notes. Until next time, happy reading and writing.